This is an AI-free podcast. Everything you read, see, and hear was created by a human. People talk about suffering for art. You shouldn't suffer for your art.
When did you start this?
Story.
I know your origin story.
Did you want my origin story?
No, I got your origin story already. You were born.
Yes.
Here's Dan Vado. Danilo Vado.
I was born at a young age.
Your first language was Italian. And then part of what helped you learn English was the comic books, the Superman comic books. And there was the character Bizarro, and you didn't know what that was.
Right.
And you asked your teacher, and then you realized...
Wow, you paid attention. Wow, that's very good. I asked my second grade teacher what a Bizarro meant.
Yes. And then your teacher suddenly realized that you had a lot more reading comprehension than she realized.
Yeah, because at first it's like Bizarro isn't really a word, and so I explained the whole notion of what Bizarro Superman was, but I didn't understand what the word Bizarro was. And it's like, she goes, "Oh, it's a derivative of the word bizarre." Oh, okay. Oh, I get it.
Anyway, 20 years later, you start a comic book company. You start publishing... Oh, actually, wait, no. I read your Wikipedia. You published your own comic books.
Yes.
And then...
You read my Wikipedia.
Well, you talk so much about it, how proud you are.
No, well, yeah, because you don't start your own Wikipedia page, right?
So you published your own comic books.
I did.
And you published your friends' comic books.
Yes.
And then you made one about a penguin that did really good.
Samurai Penguin.
And that was and then you were like, hey, this is actually a whole thing that I could be doing.
Yeah.
So, okay, Dan, that was your background. And I came in with a bunch of questions today, and they all kind of summarized to the same question of like, you have told me a lot of the lessons that you've learned.
Well, let's back up the train.
Oh, yeah.
If someone's just listening to this for the first time, what have we talked about already? Like episode 1, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Let's run it down.
Top 4 lessons I've learned: that you will get better, you just have to keep on making.
Okay.
And you're not going to get better if you don't make. Stop looking for validation in others. Validation is the killer of authentic, sincere art.
Okay.
Seeking validation is.
Seeking, yes.
And definitely don't seek validation from Dan, because you're not going to get it.
No.
And you're going to be afraid, and that not doing something because you're afraid of failing is a far bigger tragedy than
doing it.
Doing it and failing.
Yeah.
The people who have really accomplished something are the people who failed a ton, and they were okay with it. And you can be afraid, but you still got to do it.
Right.
And most recently, last week, we talked about how if you're trying to do something to fit a money-making formula, you don't have your eyes on the ball of what you should actually be focusing on, which is telling the story that's representative of who you are.
So that's the first quarter, let's call it. And then the time has run out. There's a buzzer. We're taking a breather. You've had opportunity to reflect. You had questions. I think I've made this clear. I'm not an authority. I'm not pretending to have the answer. I don't necessarily have the answer that fits you. I just have things that come to me due to my life experience. And so there's just my opinions and thoughts, and they come across very authoritative because I have that kind of a rude timbre in my voice where I'm telling you what to do. It's more about Emily's path to discovery than it is my being an authority.
You have had success.
Okay.
Tell me about the first time that you felt like this is really something.
I think when I was able to put my mom on the payroll, she was helping me out. She always helped me out. She did help do my books and pay bills and stuff like that. And so I was able to pay her after my dad passed away. And I realized I have the money to do that. And then later, as things grew a lot more, and then we moved into a big, giant place. Not this one, but a different one.
An office place, not a house place, right?
An office place, yeah. And our comics were for sale at Hot Topic. And I realized people were like, how did you manage to pull that off? Then shortly after that, we moved into a even bigger spot when we started manufacturing toys and doing T-shirts and all that stuff. And then I had a bigger staff. I think I realized there was a time when all my employees that needed it, I provided healthcare for them. And not just like access to an group insurance policy. I paid for their insurance. And I was really happy to be able to do that. I felt that was part of the social contract that a business should have. And then a couple artists too that I was publishing. So that's when I felt like, okay, this is a thing. This is real. And then it blew up equally fast.
Did everything work out as it was going, or were there fuck-ups and things that you wish were different?
Oh, you're always going to have fuck-ups. There's always going to be things that you wish you were different. I think that one of the things that I look back upon is that I was maybe a little bit better at being the publisher than I was at being the businessman. So I think a smart person would have hired somebody to run the company. But I think also knowing who I am, and I think you've realized this, is like if I'd have had someone running the company for me, they would have eventually said, you can't do that, and I never want to hear that. Like, don't tell me what I can do or can't do with my own money. I wasted a lot of money, threw a lot of good money after bad, and doubled down on things when I shouldn't have.
And it was all about keeping your autonomy?
Yeah, it was about doing what I wanted to do. I got there doing what I wanted to do, so I didn't want someone telling me like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. These comics that you want to publish don't have any financial viability. None of them did, but until they did. So yeah, but someone smarter would have said, you can't keep doing that type of thing. And I think someone smarter would have said, it's not a good idea to do a deal with Disney either. Because you just don't have that kind of capacity to produce comics that is required of a licensee like that.
Because you scaled up bigger than you had operational.
It's just, it required a lot more capital to work, because all of that is work for hire. And I didn't have the money to really do what I was trying to do. Hiring people that were working on projects that weren't theirs. And then trying to get people who had reasonably decent visions to carry them through. So I did not have the financial wherewithal to do all of that. And it was one of those things where, I pointed out to one of the Disney people that I worked with, and it's like, well, you should leave that to your, whatever department. And I was like, I am that department. I'm the publicity. I'm the editorial. I am the traffic manager. I'm doing all of that stuff. I had people helping me, that I paid, but yeah, I was doing all of that stuff, and I got in a little over my head. And then I made some bad decisions that were based more on sort of loyalty to a couple people as opposed to what made the most sense. So again, it's like somebody running the company would have come in and said, you can't, we got too much invested in this. You can't fuck around waiting for this guy to finish.
Are you glad you made those mistakes? Like,
no, not at all.
Would things be different?
Yeah, things would be a lot different. I would have, when the recession came, I would have weathered that a lot better.
So I'm hearing themes of like, you wanted to keep your hands on everything.
Yes.
You didn't want other people to take it and fuck it up or to challenge you.
I didn't want to be challenged. I didn't want to be told what to do. That was dumb.
I don't feel like that is the you I know now, though. You were open to being challenged.
But I still have the final authority. I needed someone who's like, would step to me and say, like, these are bad ideas. Don't do it. That's someone who's just better at running the business end of a company than I was. I mean, I think I did an okay job, but ultimately it's just very hard to do when you're trying to scale up, as it were, and then have a clear financial sort of manager to point out. It's like, this is where you're headed. And maybe that person doesn't exist or didn't exist or whatever, but someone needed to tell me to back the fuck up. This has nothing to do with creativity. To a certain degree it does, but it's not about that. It's about when you're trying to take something and turn it into a business. It's like here you're trying to scale up, as they say, in the business world. You're going to take this thing where you're comfortable doing 4 or 5 comics a month and maybe 1 graphic novel, and you're going to scale up because Dark Horse Comics has a toy company and they print their own shirts and they're doing 20 projects a month and blah, blah, blah. And people are making movies out of their shit. And so you're trying to scale up to match that, or I was, and it wasn't possible. with the resources that I had. So I would have been better off just letting it occur without like trying to force that Disney thing to happen and looking out for other licenses and then having giant booths at Comic-Con and letting people sit there.
Were those decisions ego-driven?
I wouldn't say necessarily, like it wasn't, I'm doing this because I want attention for myself. But it was definitely something where I was being driven by something other than common sense. It just felt like I could do that and make it work, and I didn't.
How did you take that information and...
I probably didn't. I didn't.
Does it translate at all to Art Boutique?
We pivoted into a music venue and then had some success. And that would have worked out. It would have been all fucking rainbows and unicorns if it weren't for COVID.
So it's like...
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
I made the same fucking mistake. I should have closed this place during COVID and walked away.
And never come back.
Like we got through COVID, but getting through COVID wasn't enough. It was like the post-COVID time was maybe even worse. I mean, I genuinely enjoy it, but I haven't taken a paycheck since COVID. So, and that's why I'm folding T-shirts here today. You can't see. There are T-shirts there all over this room.
That is actually, I do feel like this is a relevant backdrop to the conversation about doing everything yourself. This room is covered in T-shirts. Right? It's actually kind of cartoonish.
Yeah.
The number of T-shirts here.
Yeah, it's a fucking large amount of T-shirts.
So where are you going from here?
Death? I don't know. Yeah. We've established I'm not a young man.
Yeah, but you're not going to die.
At some point.
Yeah, but not anytime soon. We're doing a podcast. That would be rude.
I'm so sorry. I'm putting my fingers sort of back into publishing just because of all the things I've done. It seemed to be what I did best. And I maybe was a little too scarred by the kind of brain drain, for lack of a better word.
You got burned out.
You did. I mean, it was a long time.
And it sounded like you got burned, too.
Well, burned is not the right word. It just I set it up that way so that someone could walk away if they wanted to, and a lot of people did. And I don't blame them. They just did what was best for them. And it was very difficult trying to bounce back from that. So, and I think that's another mistake I made, is I got very personally involved with some folks so that it hurt a little bit more than just financially. But that's on me. That's not on them. People have to do what's best for them in their lives.
You blended a lot of the personal with the professional, too. That comes through in the art that you published, right? And the pride that you take in what you made. Mm-hmm. Would you do that again, or would you keep people at an arm's length? A
lot of times when I think about the particular question of would you do that again, and I think about the things that are important to me and the people that are important to me now, which would be, my kids, my wife, and some of my friends, how many of them would I know had I never published comics? And I'd still have the same wife. Presumably, I'd still have the same kids, but they would have turned out different. Mm-hmm. I would have turned out different. What would I have done if I just stayed running a comic book store? Or if I had just walked away from that and went to law school, and I wouldn't even be talking to anybody right now.
Yeah.
There is a person that I knew from high school, and I ran across them like a decade ago, 10, 15 years ago. And they have a fuck ton of money. Mm-hmm. Just a load of money. Retired. They were my age. I mean, this is like 15 years ago. I was like, that guy's decidedly dumber than me still. And he fell into a job at a time when there was nobody doing whatever it was that he did. I guess it was Intel or something like that. Made a shit ton of money, stocks and whatever. Was retired by the time he was 50.
Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. I wouldn't mind that. I remember when I was in my 40s and I was setting up a booth at Comic-Con, and I fell and I'd hurt my back.
Oh.
And I was lying on the floor, and I'm like, I'm not doing this when I'm 50. And then there I was. I was 50. I was still doing it. So
really early, when we didn't really know each other, I was like, Dan, should I get a tech job? And you were like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I should get a tech job too. Mm-hmm. So there's this dumb guy who retired at 50 and has a boat and a house in the Santa Cruz Mountains. But what was his life like? Did he go to the office and send emails every day and then go home and have a beer and watch TV?
Know.
Did he live a life, or is he like retired now and now I can finally go live a life now that those years are behind me? Is that a worthy sacrifice? I've struggled with this.
I get what you're talking about. Like you struggle with the idea of like, what do I do with my life? You're right at that point, right? In your life where you have to decide what you're going to do with your life. What is the best path for me? And so the thing that I always come back to when I think about it is that you have to make sure you're taken care of. By that, I don't mean that someone's taking care of you, because obviously you
have to take care of future you.
You have to take care of future you. You have to make sure that you have a solid foundation in your life, whether that is because you have a 9-to-5 job or whatever. You have some ability. You want to make sure that you're taken care of health-wise, that you can keep food in your stomach, you can keep yourself warm at night, and a roof over your head. Those are important things. People talk about suffering for art. You shouldn't suffer for your art. You shouldn't be sacrificing a stable life for your art, because that way lies madness. And
you've seen people do that?
I've seen people do that, and it's like, stop. You can still be that person that creates. And the idea that you have a job that takes care of you doesn't necessarily negate that. Now, there are some places, and I just shake my head, it's like, I have friends right now that they're working in multinational companies, and so they have to be available for meetings that start like at 9 p.m. our time, because they have to coordinate with people in other parts of the globe. And it's like, that's the expectation, that you are going to be 100% present for them. The companies need to understand that human beings work for them. And I realize they're never going to hear this, but if you're an employer somewhere, remember that it is human people who work for you. I don't care if you're running Google or if you're running a music venue or whatever, sandwich shop, whatever it might be. The people that work for you are human beings. They have needs and desires and dreams. It's not up to you to fulfill their dreams, but you have to understand when they want to do that themselves, and you can't expect people to be at your beck and call at every corner. You can't. I don't run this place that way. I've never run any of my stuff that way. People just need to be them, to be who they are. And you get more loyalty from people as an employer. Again, I'm speaking to the random employer that's out there right now that might be hearing this. People talk all about there's no loyalty people don't care about who they work for. That's right, because the people that they work for don't care about them. So and I'm saying you have to get involved and babysit their kids or whatever, but you have to understand that they're human beings. It's like, even if they're not artists, but like it's someone who's raising a family, understand that they're going to have to occasionally take a kid to a doctor's appointment or whatever. They're going to be there for you longer and work harder for you if you understand that their lives are for them. You want people who are around, you want people who are going to work hard for you. Appreciate them for what they are. I always felt like I tried to appreciate everybody that worked for me, like on my staff, and even to a lesser extent, the people that I published. I tried to make sure it's like, we're giving you all the tools to succeed and blah, 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 and this and that. And it's like, oh, you're getting a little traction as an artist and someone's willing to pay you. And it means interrupting your schedule. Okay, we'll come, my attitude is we'll come back to it when we come back to it, because I'll still be here, And people that worked for me, it's just like, again, like I said, I paid for their, when I could, I paid for their health care. I gave them time off when they needed it, and they appreciated it. People that work for me are amongst my best friends right now.
That's not the case for most working situations.
Yeah.
I leave grocery stores because I see former people that I worked for. I did earlier this week.
You walked into a grocery store, saw an old boss, and walked out?
Yes. Yes, I did. What were you like when you were 28?
When I was 28?
Yeah. Or, late 20s.
I was just starting to publish and on the verge of becoming a father. I was frightened. I was fucking frightened.
What were you publishing at that time?
Samurai Penguin had already come out and made a fair amount of money. And then I was publishing a comic called Dr. Radium, which is still one of my favorite things I've ever published. This guy, Scott Savidra, still one of the funniest guys I've known. And he is a good guy and really talented. That's where I was, late 20s. That's where you are kind of right now. But what
was it like in your head?
It was just pure noise. It was like, what do I do? What's going on? I still own the comic book store. I was fortunate that I was married to someone who made no demands. Nothing in terms of like, you need to do this or you need to do that and blah, blah, blah. I could make decisions based on me, and it made me even a little bit more busy in my head trying to figure things out, because it's like there's literally no one pushing me to do anything other than show up every day and be a good person. All I had to do was just not be a jerk. And you would find it unbelievably hard to not be a jerk sometimes. Again, it's like we're talking 37 years ago, being the difference in our ages, and I had nothing to go on. Right now, calling upon almost 4 decades worth of life experience to spout out this verbal diarrhea that I try to pass off as wisdom, but back then you just don't have anything to go on. All you have to do is maybe try to develop a vision where you're looking forward to that other point, to that other place in your life where you're going to be, you might be a dad or a mom, or you're going to be a dad and a mom because your partner might leave you with a kid, and now you got to figure out how to do that. And it's unenviable in this particular time, and I look back and a lot of things were harder. A lot of things were a lot easier. It's tough. I mean, you want to be a creative person. You are a creative person. You want to create, though. And that is a thing that you just have to do, but you have to take care of yourself.
Do you have any clues about how to do that?
If you don't have some level of security in your life, right? Like if you're not eating every day, and there are people who don't, right? You need to find a way to eat every day. You can't be an artist if you're not healthy, because your spirit is tied into you teach yoga. You know this. Your spirit's tied into your body, right? And there are literally people out there who probably just can't afford to be creative. But that doesn't mean you can't be creative. It's just that you have a lot to do just to get in this area especially. And it's not like I'm saying go out and get a job. I mean, it is kind of, but maybe what you need to do is develop a support group, people who with a like mind, people who maybe you're going to live with them. Maybe there's 5 or 6 people who can get together and support each other so that you have a roof over your head.
That sounds like a long way of describing have a community.
Have a community, yes. So you have to have people who not only have a like mind, but are willing to be there for you, and you have to be willing to be there for them. And part of having a community is being able to give yourself a sense of security, but also to have someone in your life who will say, stop that right now. Stop doing that and get this other thing under control first.
Did you have that?
Yeah, I had my wife. She just never said it. I had my parents. They never said it. I was talking about my dad. I wanted to do these things that he didn't understand. He could have put a stop to it, not by telling me to stop, but by just saying, if you want to do this, if you want to run a comic book store, you're going to have to do it somewhere else because you're not going to live in my house. But he never said that, and always made sure that I had food to eat and that I was warm at night. And he never said, don't do that. It was funny because even though, the entire time my dad was alive, I knew my dad would never let me fail. And I had that confidence. And when he passed away, I realized I was on my own. But I realized I didn't need his help anyways at that point. So, but it was weird because now I felt like now I'm alone. Now I can't fuck up anymore. Mm-hmm. So it might be your community might be your family. It might be a group of people, friends or whatever. And just like, they that old saying about check on your friends. Check on your friends, check on them. Make sure they're okay.
So it really is the friends we make along the way.
It kind of is.
I would venture to say that feels like a lesson in life. And the whole creative experiment of living a creative life is just a lesson in
being
human.
We're not alone. We're not alone here. Neither one of us is alone. We walk in here, and you have your partner, I have my family, and we have obligations and things like that to those people. But these are people that you brought into your life that you assign a certain amount of importance to. I know that I have friends that I can call on, that if I needed to do something and it was majorly important, they'd be here in a minute, no matter where they were.
I do too.
Yeah. So, that's really important.
Well, and we talked about how the spirit is tied to the body, but like the things that we make as creative people are the fruit of the healthy ecosystem of like our lives and our relationships within our lives. My book only happened because I had people who stepped up to help me, people who proofread, people who gave me more hours, when I needed them, and hired me for odd jobs because I needed to support myself through the summer while I was writing a book, and people who showed up to my party. I have a friend who catered my entire launch party just out of the love of her heart because she liked me so much. And I just feel lucky. I feel lucky that I had these people. No lesson there. Usually I tell jokes, and I didn't have a joke there, but
I think that's an advancement for you.
Oh, evolution here on the podcast?
Evolution. You evolved there to not have to have a funny quip. You asked me, looking back, what do you imagine 65-year-old Emily is going to be like?
Oh, I don't know. The wisdom that you impart is you have to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing great at that right now, so it's hard. I'm not invested in the S&P whatever, Oh,
you don't need to be.
I know I'm not in a secure position. And I'm trying to figure out what to do next, and I'm just trying to do that without losing sight of my values. And I know you can't eat values, I know I could have to go work at Adobe, and then I won't be able to do my fun podcast anymore, and I won't be able to teach yoga anymore, and I won't be able to...
No. It'll come to you.
I know.
It'll come to you.